All right. Hello, I am Kimberly McLemore, and welcome to another episode of 360 and Me, Mimosas and Conversations, where we have conversations on some of our favorite or not so favorite topics. And today we're doing the third episode of Video Fear, and I'm excited because I got my boo with me today. Hello and welcome, Mr. Teryck Coles. How are you, my love?
I'm well, Kimberly. How are you?
I am good. Look, before we get started, we got to cheers to you, sweetheart. Where is your
Uh,
drink at? You can't start a good
wait,
conversation
wait,
without a good drink. There
there
you
it
go.
is. There it is. It's blending into the background now, but it's here.
Woo, it's here. Look, take a sip, give yourself some relaxation, and we're gonna get this party rocking and rolling. Mm.
All right.
Well, all right. All right. So again, like I said, today we're here to talk about video fear. And I'm so excited about this conversation. You are the third person I've communicated about this with. And I'm doing this because I've learned so much about the fact of how scared we are as even though we're professionals, we are truly scared about being in front of the camera and trying to work things out. And you and I have had this conversation, but I was like, no, we need to do this on camera. We really need to talk about this on video. And so, you know what, Terry, let's just rock this out. Let's talk about it. Talk about your fears of being on video and why, what's going on.
Oh wow. Wow. Video. I want to start by talking about how many years ago, most of us were probably hip to that old phrase that the camera adds 10 pounds. So, like if you go into journalism, as far as like on the TV side, or if you're going to be in front of the camera, if you're an actor, an actress, or whatever you're doing, you kind of learn that you have to like be underweight in order to look like normal. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I want to say that's probably the first thing that probably scares a lot of us, myself included, that I'm going to look like really weird on camera. Like, am I sucking in? And it's not like if you're so for the viewers at home, I also teach fitness classes. So when you're in front of a class, people don't really pay attention to your body like that. But when you have a photographer, like I've had photographers come to my classes and videographers come, and it's like then you start seeing, oh my gosh, when I do this one thing, it looks really weird, and if I do this other thing, that looks really weird. But when I do this, it looks all right. So then you start learning, okay, this is acceptable for me to do. I need to change this or make it look different, and um, of course, it's just gosh, I feel like I'm all over the place right now. But the biggest thing I think for all of us is just we get into our own heads, and like I said, I know I certainly do because I'm worried that I'm going to look too fat. I'm worried I'm going to look awkward, um, and then sometimes you don't know if you're supposed to perform to the camera or if you're
Mm-hmm.
supposed to perform to your audience. And of course, in this day and age in 2021, going into it's okay if I say the year.
Yeah, yeah. Just
Yeah,
it's gonna be look.
yeah.
Everybody's gonna see this year, okay?
Okay. Yeah.
And next year, if they decide that they want to go back and review this amazing conversation. But no, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But in this day in 2021, when most of us are Zooming, YouTubing, and Teams meeting, and whatever that you use, especially for work, just to meet with your coworkers, it's kind of like, there are all these articles that have come on about etiquette and, how to like make yourself look presentable. And it's just, I think the biggest thing is getting out of our own heads for the fear, and then getting rid of that awkwardness. Because, like I said, the biggest part, I'm gonna say the biggest part. I said that already, but um, a lot of times we don't know we don't know how we look until we look at ourselves in playback. And I was listening to something interesting the other day. It was either on YouTube or I think it was on YouTube about how oftentimes when we look in the mirror in the mornings, we don't actually look at ourselves. We're looking at things like on our face.
Hmm.
Like if you think about men when we're shaving our beards, we're just looking here. If you're exfoliating, your face, you're looking in this area. Ladies, and you're putting on
Right.
mascara and eyeshadow, you're looking here, and lipstick, you're looking. So we're looking at segments of our face,
Hmm.
or you're doing your hair, so we're focused in pieces, um, rather than actually looking at ourselves. And so I think that's where a lot of the anxiety around doing videos comes in, because a lot of us just don't look at ourselves, and we
Right,
don't watch
right.
ourselves move, we don't watch ourselves stand, we don't watch ourselves talk. And so when we see ourselves, we're like, oh my God, is that what I look like? And of course, other people don't have a problem with it. But when we look at ourselves, we're like really, really overly critical and really judgmental. So I think that's a part of the fear around doing videos for a lot of people.
Yeah, but and you're right. And the big part of it is that when I look at myself, I only want to see the good parts. Okay. So I'm like, you know what? I know what the rest of me looks like, and I'm not trying to look at that right now. So
Mm-hmm.
it's that constant fear, and it's funny because you and I just did a video not too long ago, and the video was great, but I looked at it, I was like, oh my God. I was like, when I turned to the side, I look like I'm 100 pounds bigger than what I really am. Everything is out of line. I was like, if I could have done it over, I would have, but I still would have been satisfied, I think. And
Right.
that's always the thing, because that's all the conversations that I've had with other people on this whole topic is the same thing. The first thing that comes out of everybody's mouth is like, hey, how do we look on the camera? And a big part of it is because we're always being criticized about the way that we look. We live in a society that criticizes you for everything. And so, of course, we are going to be our own worst critics. We're harder on ourselves. And then when we start to put ourselves out more in the public, which the funny part is that we're in the public eye, but we're just doing it in a different manner. Like you said, when we're in Europe, they're doing your thing, in the Zuma. You don't have time to think about, am I being videoed? What do I look like? You're just up there doing your thing. And in our eyes, to me, you look phenomenal. I'm like, look at the sexy man got his thing going on over here, So everything is perfect to me. But like you said, that's just how we predict and look at ourselves in such a different way. But how does it specifically, how does it really make you feel? Because now we're talking in general, but I really want to hear your story, because some of the conversations I've had, I mean, one of my girls I was talking to, she says she breaks out in sweats. She can't function. Her heartbeat is going 100 miles per hour. The other one's like, hey, I got to be perfect. If I'm not perfect, because the way I sound or talk, things just don't work out. So people don't do videos. And these are, like I said, full-time professional people. They have businesses, they all belong to something. Everybody that, is going through this process, people think that it should be willy-nilly. We should be able to handle it because we are professionals. That's not the reality of it. So I want to know your story. I want to know how do you feel every time you have to think about doing a video, especially when it comes to what you do in the Zumba world? Because, I always talk about, like, hey, I need to see you do more virtuals, and I don't get to see my boo. Why are you out there?
well, aside from some of the reasons I just mentioned, just the awkwardness just on camera. For me, okay, so there are a couple things for me that I can speak to. One of them is technology and understanding how to use that technology, which, as most of the viewers out there who are lay people, we understand that some things are above our pay grades. And it's like you want to understand it, you try to understand it. You have people who like dumb it down for you, but then you end up in a position where when you're trying to actually make something happen, it's like, how do I do this? And then you see people like online with all these effortless like videos. It's like, oh, and they do the edits, and you're like yourself, and it's like, how in the world is this person doing this, is making this happen? And I get in, and then when you start thinking about doing the editing, and in my full-time job, we use technology as well with our physicians and whatnot to provide care to our patients. And one of the things that I get from a lot of people, especially those who are elderly, who are of a certain age, I want to say elderly, but of a certain age, and even some people who are not of a certain age, they might be my age, your age, a little younger, who just aren't tech savvy. They're like, well, I don't want to do a video call with the doctor. I just want to come in because I don't know how to work that. And that's a big piece of fear that I hear, is just that I think there's a lot of hesitancy not even hesitancy. I just think that some people just downright don't want to do it because it's just when you get into that technical piece, you have to learn something. And then, and it's overwhelming because when we think of IT, we think of all those numbers, those ones and zeros, and um, all that computer programming that goes on in the background that most of us as lay people don't really understand. And I know all the apps and video editing tools have made it easy, but we get nervous. And then if you're doing like something live, like a virtual class, or then it's like if something goes wrong, how do you fix it in real time? And because your endorphins are going. Like I've been in doing a class before virtually, and then like people like I can't hear the sound, and so I'm having to try to like stop in the middle and look at stuff, and then, or people are in the virtual waiting room, and they need to do that in, and it's just like. That's why we say to come in, 5 minutes to log on 5 minutes before the start time so I can get everybody ushered in the room. But you have people waiting in the waiting room, and it's like, well, I can't just stop the song. And so there's that frustration. And I really think that technology piece is just a huge, huge thing, from just the setup. And I'll get to more about that too, just the setup with the wires and the cords and the O-rings. I've got my O-ring up right now. I know you probably have stuff. And
I know you've seen it. I was like, let me make sure I got that on. Okay.
Yeah.
I love that thing, the O-ring. Yes.
It is fantastic. But I never thought I would own one, and now here I am, and I have one, and I've used it probably more times than I thought I would. So technically, I'm like, well, I got my money's worth. I don't use it as much as I wear shoes, but I use it often enough that I'm like, oh well, we got it going on over here.
Well, look, if you start using it more than you wear shoes, then that means you're making your living doing videos, and that's not impossible. People do it every day, right? It's not impossible. So that O-ring is definitely, whatever you pay for it, it is worth every penny. And I've learned that. We've had that conversation before too. How when you think about a tool that you have, and my son was like, look, I bought you all these tools. You're going to start using this stuff, figure out how to use it. And it's just something that, we're just not used to wanting to do. And a big part of it for me is being that I'm a little bit older, it's like, we're just so used to having to be able to do things out in front of everybody. You stood there, you talked to people, you just say what you had to say, no matter what it is that you were working on at that point in time. And I think that's the biggest thing that I have found. So having to transition into this, what we consider as new, has not been new. It's been out forever, but just taking that leap it was probably the scariest thing I had ever done. And, me, I mean, being that, I've done podcast shows and everything, it's having that opportunity just to sit behind the mic. I love it. It's easy for me. I flow with it. But then when I realized, oh shit, I got to get on here and do a video. I'm like, oh my gosh. So, it to you think it's easy. For me, it really isn't that easy. I have learned that once I decided to just get into it, I said, you know what? It doesn't matter what other people think, because I realize you're either going to watch it or you're not going to watch it. It really is that simple. And even though we're trying to convey something important for people to, whether you're trying to teach them something, whether you're trying to learn something, you're really trying to give people something that they can have for free, but it's worth value, and so unfortunately, not everybody's going to think about that value. They only think about, sometimes I've had people say, oh, look at how the person's looking. When I used to do the podcast, I used to do them live like this, and we would record them and, or be live or whatever and on video. And I would get remarks like, oh, that person's got some nice shoes, or he sure is fine. I'm like, that's not why I'm doing this video. I'm like, did you learn anything?
Hey, whatever gets them there. Hey, whatever gets them there. That's what most pastors say. Whatever brings you in the door. Hey, as long as you do get, at some point they do get a message. I do talk about that. I remember there was a pastor that I had, and there was somebody she was interested in. And before she became a pastor.
Okay.
And she was like, well, if I'm going to give it you, I got to go find out where you're at, and was following, the object of her adoration or her affection to church, and ended up coming into church. And later on, they actually did start dating, and they got married, and she became a pastor. But it took that object of affection to kind of get her in the door. So hey, whatever means gets you there. Like,
Look, that's
hey.
just too much work sometimes. It's too much work, okay? But yeah, I mean, it's just crazy what we have to go through. But yeah, I know you're talking about the, understanding just the technology. Like I said, IT is IT, and today though, everything is just so simplified. And we talked about just doing the iPhone. I mean, I hated iPhone. I never thought I would ever go from an Android to an iPhone. But
I'm still scared
just
of iPhone.
I know, but you can't be scared. But look, I've been ecstatic because it has made my life so much simpler. Even though I know, that the Androids are literally turning a lot to be like the iPhones. But I just never realized how simple it is. And I was fortunate enough that I have a government phone, so I was able to kind of utilize it and see what it was like. But I never did videos. I never utilized all the other apps and tools and resources until I finally had no choice but to get my own phone, because my other phone, I said, you know what, this plug it up stuff is not working 24/7. So it was like, get a phone. My son's like, come to the other side of the world, Mom. Come on over. It's like, come on over to the iPhone. And finally, I said, I'm going to do this. I got it. And it really has not been that hard. And it has been much easier to learn how to utilize the tools and resources on it. And as you talked about with the editing of videos and stuff, I'm just amazed how easy it is to use the iMovie, which a lot of people I'm sure do know about. For those who are not really understanding what it means to do a video and how to use the tools and resources, you want to use and learn and learn that iMovie. I mean, it's just amazing, because I said it earlier, it's like, we get done recording, so I got to do all this editing on, and I download it immediately from my phone into the iMovie. And so just being able to know that I don't have to pull up any other apps, I don't have to go in there and try to learn something else, so I can edit everything and make it look good and, make sure it sounds good, all of that stuff. I can do it literally on my phone. Now, of course, it does take a little more time, to do it from your phone. So you have to be patient. You definitely have to learn that. And then as you keep doing more and more videos, it gets a little bit easier. Yeah. So you can do it. You can do it.
And I want to kind of piggyback off of what you were just saying about how it gets easier. It's like, for me, like, I know on the other side, if I start doing something, eventually I'll get into a habit of it. And I guess for those folks at home, I want to say, it's kind of like when you're at work and you're doing training. You get a new training. Nobody wants to do a new training. Nobody likes training on something or being cross-trained on something. Like, that's not my job description, but just remember there's other duties that's assigned. And so, sometimes we end up doing something, we don't want to do it. And the first time we do it, it might take us 20, 30 minutes to do whatever it is once we're out on our own after training. And then the next time it might take 25. And then the next time it might take 20. And then eventually you're down to 10. And then sometimes, depending on what you're doing, it might take you 5 minutes to get in and get out and do it and go on with the rest of your day. So, and it's just from doing things habitually that really, really helps out. So, get over your fear on that part, folks at home, because eventually if you do it regularly, you'll just become a kind of, not a machine, I don't want to say, but it'll be like that.
Well, yeah, and and what I found is that when you want to do something, and once you get used to it, you just don't think about it as often. You just say, hey, you know what, I want to do this quick video. It doesn't always have to be 15, 20 minutes. It could be a 30, 40-second video. You just want to get whatever that point is. And the one thing that I've talked to some of the other people that we've talked about in this video, fear, is how, like, it's easy to take a picture and try to explain. And the next thing you know, you're trying to explain it all out and texting it and typing it out, whatever, where it literally can take you that 30 or 40 seconds to get on that video, show whatever it is that you're trying to talk about. And you don't have to go through all that. Well, let me type this out. This is what I'm trying to say to you. And it's just funny how you can definitely learn to transition into
Mm-hmm.
that once you get out of that feeling of, oh, I can't do this thing, I'm just not used to it. And even just to sit around and practice on your own. And what I've learned is that doing videos, you're literally talking to yourself. You and that's sometimes I think is the hardest part, that nobody is actually sitting there listening to you until you actually air that video. So when you're doing these videos, you have to take that persona of, oh my gosh, I got to literally think that I'm talking to somebody in order for them to convey the message you're trying to convey to them and what you're trying to teach, or whatever the case may be, or show. So I think that to me was kind of the hard part in the beginning of trying to figure out, how am I going to do this video? Like now you and I are talking to each other, so the conversation is easy. We can, kick it, have fun. But when you're by yourself, you're like, okay, how am I going to make this? How am I going to make this sound good? That people really want to listen to you and watch you.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's part of the fear too. Is, does anyone really care about what I have to say?
Yeah. Yep.
But at the same time, some of our most famous YouTubers and vloggers, the reason why they're as well known as they are is because they get on and they just start talking and about whatever, and then they just post it, and then people start watching, and it's just like, there's a podcast that I listen to sometimes, not ours, but a different one. So a competing podcast. They one of the things one of the guys says sometimes, he's like, I don't even know why y'all listen to us anyway. He was like we don't have all the answers. We don't. So why don't y'all even tune in every week? But at the same time, every week they record, they release, and it's just him and her talking about whatever they're talking about, and that's how they started. But just or it started with him just talking about his whatever, ranting about whatever was going on that he was mad about, and then they turned that into a show. And but I think it's just a matter of if you have something to say, making sure that you're saying something, I want to say definitive, not something that necessarily that you can't go back on, because I think as humans, we should have the right to change our stance, especially if we say something that is, I don't want to just say inoffensive, but if we say something that is inappropriate, because you may have that feeling, and if that's how you feel when you say it, then you should be able to say that. I mean, I might not like it, and I don't have to like it, but you could, but the hope is that you can change your mode of thinking, because sometimes with folks, through education and experiences and more cultural sensitivity, and we start to get that type of sensitivity from engaging with people who are different than us. Then eventually, I think that we start to see a difference in whatever our first hard-lined opinion might have been, and then we kind of start to navigate to a space where we start to look at things differently. And it's like, well, I said this back in '86, but
right.
it's 2026 right now, and that don't really seem right. And I think that we should be able to have that kind of growth, because as humans, one of the things that we're supposed to be doing is evolving, not just evolving as a species, but evolving on our own as a person, as an individual, over the course of our lives. We should be like, who I was when I was 16 is not who I am now, and I should not be who I was.
And
at 16.
Shouldn't be, exactly.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah.
Right.
If you get to be my age and I'm in my early 40s and you are still operating like a 16-year-old, you have a problem.
That's right. But unfortunately, there are a lot of people out there who are like that, But when you kind of go back to what you were saying, as far as, people really saying what they want to say and being able to just be authentic, I think is the key word, that we think about when it comes to doing our videos. And, I've talked to these, the other ladies about this topic, some of the things that they feared was like, hey, they have somebody perfect back there setting up their stuff for them, getting everything, and all they got to do is come on and show up. It's not about perfection. It really isn't. It's about just coming on, like you said, and being you, talking about the topics that you want to talk about, realizing that this is about your platform. It has nothing to do with anybody else. And whether they listen to it or not, we can't control that. You know, we hope that people want to listen to us and hear what we have to say. But really, at the end of the day, I think I have found that doing these videos is just as much my own therapy for myself, you know, as it is as it is for everybody else. Because sometimes, you know, you have to go through that. And I think a lot of times too, when people depend on us so much, that they don't realize how much that we need to have something to lean on as well. And so we may have to lean on ourselves by doing our own videos. And for me, even writing my own books is literally has been my therapy through everything that I've gone through in life. And so when I'm sharing that with other people, it reminding myself in my head, you know, or what I'm saying or talking about or reading, this is really truly what helps me get through sometimes the day, you know, or I'm having those moments, those trigger moments that I don't want to have. So, you know, when we think about doing these videos, no matter even how scared we may be, we're literally sharing some of our personal side, you know, some of our professional side, just a little bit more about who we are and what we're doing. And I think that was part of the reason for me why I wanted to start doing these videos and calling it 360 and Me, because people would only see one side of me and they think that, oh, you know, my life is so perfect. And, oh, you know, they see the shell of us and not realize that we are very human, you know, more human than they could possibly imagine. So being able to share some of these conversations and talking about things, I think that people can absolutely relate to us just being just normal people.
Exactly. And, you know, that authenticity is what attracts people to your platform. Like the reason why I follow some of the people that I follow is because of at least the people who are front facing on the camera. It's because of that authenticity that kind of reads through the screen. And yeah, I follow some cooking channels, and some people you just see them. They just all you see are their hands, and you hear music,
Yep.
and you know what they're cutting up and what they're doing. So I'm following for the recipe. I'm not following for the engagement with the personality behind the camera. But then you have other folks who might be doing a cooking channel, but you see them and they're talking, you know, or you hear their voice, so you can hear the inflections, and they have an accent, you know, you can hear that, whether it's Southern or it's a regional, like it's, I'm gonna say foreign, but if they're from another country, you can hear the accent and the inflections, and, you know, and so that kind of lends itself to not only being more authentic, but also to an air of I won't say it, of it feeling more personal and more intimate, because you're like, oh, and you know that's why a lot of times people feel like they know somebody, like a celebrity or something, because you know, when are most of us looking at these things? When we're, you know, in bed, we're sitting on the couch, just, you know, having a glass of wine, or maybe we're in the kitchen, you know, cooking, and so cooking is a very intimate experience. So maybe you're watching your favorite blogger then, and some people are in the bathroom. But
way too much information.
I mean, I'm just saying some people are in the bathroom. I'm not saying it's me, but for those out there, you know who you are. You know if you're guilty. You know, I mean,
exactly.
I mean, but sometimes like I'll be like in there shaving, and I'll be listening to something, you know, because I want to hear something, and maybe not music, but you know, so you get to start to feel because we listen to these people as they exist. And they feel authentic because we're listening to their message. So there has to be something about them that captures us.
Right.
Because of that, we take them into these intimate spaces where they're in our homes and they become a part of our lives, whether we believe it or not. And then, you know, they start selling merchandise.
Yeah.
And, you know, I can't say that I haven't bought, you know, a T-shirt or, you know, a hair product because so-and-so, you know, was selling it. And it's like, well, you know, I know well enough to know that's not my friend, but, you know, I feel like it's a reliable source. So there's a credibility now, you know, added to this particular thing because I feel like it's a reliable source. And so I'm more likely to, you know, partake in it, which that can go down a rabbit hole if you listen to the wrong source, but that's a whole other situation. But, you know, but yeah.
Well, but it also talks about the fact that if that person is thinking that way, you're absolutely thinking the same way too, right? So that's a part of the reason why we are connected to certain people. It's just that we feel like we have something there, and even if that person's going on that rabbit hole, that you be like, wait a minute, this person's crazy as all get out. That's just their thought process, and we just don't think that way. But that is the purpose of having the opportunity of that freedom of speech and being able to get on these videos and talk about certain things, and we're never going to 100% agree with everything, but at the same token, we have a connection. At least we feel like we have a connection with people who are doing, whether it's a podcast, whether they're doing videos, because we can identify with whatever that conversation may be at that point in time, or whatever they may be cooking. You'd be like, oh man, I want to cook like that too. Or if it's a trip that you may want to go on and you see that trip, it's like, you know what? I never heard about this place, but I may go there just because I've heard this other person talk about it, or I've seen it on video, whatever the case would be. So there's a lot of things and reasons of why people do what they do when it comes to video. But when it comes to you personally, I just want to know some more about what the fear, why do you not truly get up, besides the stuff that we've talked about? There's something that stops you from not literally getting on and doing a video, whether it's daily, weekly, monthly, or whatever. What else is it that stops you?
Well, another piece for me is just quite honestly spacing. Well, there are two things I want to share. Spacing, because I live in an apartment, and I have a lot of space because I have 2 levels. But for me, it would be easier if I had like a designated space where I could do videos. Like I know other folks that do videos, they have designated spaces where they do certain things. I live here with my other half, and so you got 2 grown people and a dog moving around in the space. So it's kind of hard to just set up a space. So like for those folks who have like homes or have larger spaces where they can say, this is my space where I go and I do this, I think that's a little bit easier. Because for me, it's like I have to like move furniture around and set things up, and like I like above a certain wall over here. You can't see it now, but I have like my little hanging things where I hang my green screen from when I do record. Because I was like, I'm just gonna leave them up until I just decide I'm never recording again. Because I don't want to put them up and take them down, and then right. And so there's all these logistics involved, and I got to clear the space and make sure I've got to, once I have done it enough that I kind of know where my spacing is, but, and doing like, and for the viewers at home, for me, typically I would be doing like a dance fitness class, on like a virtual dance fitness class. So you have to know your spacing, because people still need to be able to see you move, so you can't, you aren't able to move too far up. You can't move too far to the side. So, when you're in a live class, you're able to really move around a stage. Whereas when you're in your home, you're limited to kind of like a 4x4 or an 8x8, depending on the size that you have, or the space that you have. So, one thing about that, I don't know if it's really fear, but that's probably like laziness, which takes me into my second part.
I love it. I love it. Look, you were like, I don't know if it's fear. Maybe it's just really laziness.
Yeah, I just mean, hey, we keeping it 100, right?
That's right, keeping it real.
But that's one of those things is with the laziness, when you realize, okay, I've got to move this piece of furniture, move this, and I've got to put this up, and I've got to pull out the step stool so I can get up and put these things up, and you got to find your background that you want to use for that class, and are you going to have any props? Where are they going to be? They got to be somewhere where you can easily get to them. And then once again, I am a doggy daddy, and sometimes he makes appearances, sometimes he does not. Totally depends on how he feels. So that's a huge part. And in doing, especially if you're doing like a weekly class, that commitment to, and if you're doing classes virtually multiple times a week where you need that kind of space, and you're having to constantly tear up and tear down, it gets to be kind of taxing, and you don't want to leave it up, every day, but it just becomes a lot where you're just like, God, this is like, it's almost like you're the stagehand and you're the performing act.
Absolutely.
Like you're Beyonce and you're everybody else. And it's just like, why can't I just show up and everything be ready? And I know with some of the more famous YouTubers and stuff, some of them will have a manager or a backhand person that's kind of like helping in the background to manage things while they're live on camera. Some of them do, some of them don't. But it's like maybe one or two people that are just in the background helping out with like logistical, technical things while they're front facing. But then that person still has to come in, like yourself, and then come in and then do like the editing and making sure that everything looks right, because this is their platform and this is their face. This is who they are, and if you truly want to be represented authentically, you have to be involved in the process. And it's just, there's a lot of responsibility that goes into it, and it's just like, oh.
Yeah, and it is. It is. It really is. And excuse me. And I think, the big part of it is that I've learned that it doesn't really matter where you do it at, and obviously, like I said, it's a little different when you're trying to dance and everything. But nowadays, the way I see people do videos, it's like, oh, if I'm going to be standing here in the middle of the street, I'm going to do a little dance move. Like, okay, I mean, everybody now just does it wherever they feel like they want to do it, and whatever makes them comfortable. And I think a big part of it, like I said, is comfortableness. And do you really want to take the time to take this down, take that down, put this up, do whatever the case may be? But the big thing I think I would love to see, just you getting on and just sharing. You don't even have to dance. You have so much wonderfulness to say. Oh. When I read your post, I'd be like, you know what? He just made my day. Because some days you have those days where you just feel like, ugh. The next, like, ooh. T always puts out something that is beautiful and aligns with who you are and what you have to feel or say. You always honor other people. And so just to be able to pop on and do a video, I would love to hear you talk about that, what you're saying that you have already written, because you just bring so much value that sometimes people just need to hear you. They just need to see your voice and hear you, not just read it, but just need to see that voice and hear that person talk about and convey what it is that they've written. And I think that you don't have to worry about always having a setup. I've learned that doing my videos in my house, I just pick a certain portion of my house and I just do it. Now I'm obviously in my office. But I always try to define different spaces, only because I think depending on how I feel that at that day or whatever it is I want to talk about, I want to make sure that I'm comfortable within my own environment. I'm not one who haven't got into I'm just stand outside here and just start taking videos. I haven't done that yet. I'm like, because you always worry about, oh, is somebody gawking at me? What are they thinking or what are they going to say? And it still brings out that little bit of fear, of always wondering who's gonna be in the background. Well, one thing I can say in my house, I'm the only one in here, so I don't have to hear anybody's opinion. I don't have to worry about what they're saying or thinking. But at the same time, it's still just that constant practice of, this is how I want to do it. Like now we're having this great conversation through video, and I'm loving it because I'm having the opportunity to talk to you and share these things with other people. And so we want to see your beautiful face more often. So I'm just throwing it out there in the universe. Okay. Just throwing it out there.
I want to say I'm glad you read the posts when I post. But that's actually, I'm glad you mentioned that too, because that's something that over the years, since I've been involved in social media, one of the concerns that I had was that people who don't know me, and they're just reading like the words, who don't know me, they don't know how I speak or how I measure my voice. They don't know my inflections. So when I write things, I try to be as specific and simple, as simplistic as possible. But sometimes you never know what translates to someone, because I've had some instances years and years ago where my words got misinterpreted because the reader didn't understand the context in which I was writing, because that person just didn't really understand my voice. I'm like, well, you don't really know me, so you can't really criticize what I wrote. But if you go back and read it thoughtfully, it'll make sense. And so that planted a seed back in the back of my mind, all those years ago. Do people really understand what we're saying when we're just writing, especially just writing a post on Facebook or any other social media platform? Do they really understand? But when you do a video, people can understand, the inflection and the tone by which you're relaying your message. So I definitely think that helps, and so it's definitely been something that's been under consideration.
Yay!
Just not sure how that's going to manifest itself going forward, but 2020 gave me a lot of time to kind of like reflect. And I don't know if everyone out there took time to use that year of virtual like downtime to really give themselves time to think about where they're at, what they're doing, what they want to do. Hopefully people did. Because I mean, just having that time to really reflect on things kind of gave me, without all these distractions, those daily distractions that we go through, traffic, getting kids to soccer practice, going to the gym, and I teach fitness class, but a lot of times we have all these little distractions in our lives that keep us from focusing on what it is we want to do. And people say, "Oh, I'm so goal oriented," and they're trying to do their thing, and it's like, are you really? Or are you just going through steps?
Exactly.
Just following your little path and clicking off what you need to click off, checking off the boxes for the day. But hopefully people were able to use that time. And even in 2021, even though we're getting back to some sense of normalcy, in some essence of it rather, it's still important. I think people should continue to use the rest of this year, to really be thoughtful. So when going into the next years, hopefully, anything that anyone out there in the viewing land, who's listening to the words coming out of my mouth, myself included, hopefully they'll, use that time use this time to be prepared for the future time and really do and set forth into motion those things that they want to do instead of just checking off the boxes of their day.
Right. Well, like I always say, there's 365 days out of the year. So there's a day that you have every day to take an opportunity to do whatever. And like you said, I think that during 2020, we were stopped. We were kind of brought to our knees. We had I don't believe you didn't have a choice but to reflect, because your life literally was different at that point. Everything that we, like you said, that we do just simultaneously because we do it every single day, we literally could not do those things. So it gave you an opportunity to just sit down and think about, do you want to continue doing this? Do you not want to continue doing this? And it's funny because I was just listening to the news last week, and it amazed me. And they were saying that for the first time ever in history, they had more people quitting jobs than they actually had people actually applying for jobs ever in history. So people are changing, their mindsets are changing, their thought processes are changing, and why they want to do what they want to do, or not going to, deal with anymore, and they want to be considered worthy. And so, having this opportunity, whether it was last year or this year or in the future, this is what it's really about, is truly starting to live for yourself. And I even had to start thinking about that, because I'm always doing things for other people and never putting myself first in ways that I needed to, especially in business, because my thought process is that anything I can do to help you be successful and to help you live your dreams out loud, that's what I do. But then I started to realize, where are my dreams going? That, I'm doing what I want to do, but am I manifesting them in the way that I want them to be manifested? Am I showing up the way I want to be shown up? Because I realized I wasn't being invited to other people's tables. So I said, you know what? I don't need your table. I got my own. I'm going to create whatever the hell I want you to create. Now, whether you want to be a part of that, fine. If you don't, I don't have time for it. I'm not going to sit here and constantly apologize for who I am, what I've done, and why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I think that's a big part of what we learn about ourselves when you start to have time to really sit back and think, and then wanting to do some of the things that you want to do. And even for you, you've gone through some things that, this year that you never thought you would have to really about dealing with. And so it makes you sit back and think, is this really worth the time to take away from yourself your family, your friends, just wanting to live. Some days I just don't. I'm home. I work from home a lot, but when I travel a lot, which and I just be like, I don't want to go nowhere. I don't want to do nothing else. This is just who I am and who I'm becoming, because I've grown to that point in my life where I have to start making myself first. I think I did a post the other day talking about you have to learn to be more obsessed with yourself and realize that you are a priority and that it's okay to be that priority instead of allowing people to tell you have to be obsessed in everything else. And that's really not the truth. You have to be your own truth.
Yes. Agreed. 100%.
It's like I got to lay the law down. You got to lay it down every now and then. I'm crazy. It's okay. You can say it.
No, it's fine. Sorry, I keep shifting around on my seat here. I was sitting on my legs.
Okay.
My legs starting to go to sleep now.
So yeah, it's just like I said, I like having these conversations just because I think we can just be more open about how we really feel, and also too, it gives people opportunity to stop just being judgmental. It's like, stop worrying about what that person is doing and worry about what you need to be doing. Quit worrying about why this person doesn't do it your way. Allow them to grow in the way that they want to do it.
Minding your business is free. she was saying you can do in the world. Mind your business.
Look, cheers to that one, okay? Minding your business is free. I'm stealing that one from you. I love that statement, because it is the truth. It is the truth. Yeah. So you always say, stay in your lane, do you, and quit worrying about everything else. So is there anything else you want to share about, the fear that you have, or is there any, or we don't even have to call it fear, but any other thoughts about, what it means to you, doing videos, and, how do you see, how do you feel like you may want to go forward if you decide to go that direction?
Well, I do have one other, and I'll be brief with it. Because I shared this with a friend of mine way back, and part of my fear is not just it actually doesn't have anything to do with the lazy part. It's more about being accountable. My thought was something that was fearful for me, because I know the type of person that I am. I was like, what if I do this? Like, if I start vlogging and doing stuff, and I'm actually good at it, and then people start to respond to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I actually have to start putting out more content, and then I have to start doing more things. And it's like, if you never know when what you're doing is going to take off, and when people are going to attach themselves to it or tether themselves to it. But once you start actually doing it, at least for me, my thought is, what if I'm actually good at it, and then I need to keep doing it, and then I need to figure out, the steps after that, because then it becomes this thing that, it's not like just showing up to work or going in for a promotion and you get it, and, you have your job description, so what you're supposed to be doing. But in this, it's its own thing, and you don't know where it'll take you, which is the good part of it. But the fearful part is you don't know where it will take you. You can measure your steps and manifest things, and put it on your vision board and say, this is what I'm going to be doing, this is where I want to be, and that's fantastic and very helpful, whether you're vlogging or not. But it's like, well, what if I start doing it and it actually becomes something? You got to think about, what do I want it to be? How do I want this to represent me? For me, it almost becomes overwhelming, where you start thinking about, and most people that do specific types of content they kind of specify. Oh, I want to specify. What's the word I want to use? But they usually start off and they have this one type of thing that they do. And I've seen different vloggers and podcast folks like yourself who started to you have your thing here, and then you start going into other areas, so that just to expand the brand. But it's just like, I don't know. And just thinking about that whole collective thing, it's like this huge big thing up here. It's just like it's the what if
Right.
that question mark.
Right.
And so that's I can't speak for everyone else. For me, that's a fearful part as well, because then it's like, well, what do I do? And like I said, to use the kind of like the regular job analogy, you get a job, you get a 401k, you get a if you have a maybe alternate retirement plan, life insurance policy, you know what
Mm-hmm.
your trajectory is. But with this, it's like the blueprint is still being made, like as we speak, and so it's kind of like, well, where is that going to take me 10 years
Mm-hmm.
from now? Where am I going to be 20 years from now? And for someone like myself, who's a man of a particular age, I'm more time conscious than I was when I was
Right.
20 years ago, when I was like, oh, 20 years ago, I was like, oh, that's whatever, I'm sure I'll do this, or no, I don't want to do that. And time kind of like, you have more, the concept of time was different. Where like now, time is a little bit more finite, and I'm realizing, okay, I don't have as much time as I thought I did, and so yeah, that's the other place I'm at, just trying to like figure out if I'm gonna dip my toe in it. I shouldn't just dip my
Right.
toe. I need to do it and stay and be prepared for the long haul, or I could not dip my toe in and just sit up here and watch everybody else. And it's like figuring out. I'm kind of like a black or white kind of person when it comes to that, where
Mm-hmm.
either I want to do it and
Mm-hmm.
just do it, or I'm just
Mm-hmm.
gonna like not do it and let everybody
Right.
else
Do their
have their
thing.
way.
Right.
Hmm.
Right. Right. But it's funny that you brought that up because I had seen a special. It was some type of show. I happened to turn it on HBO just out of nowhere. I didn't even know it existed. And it's funny that you're talking about this same concept where this guy had decided, hey, I'm going to do this special thing where I want to pick to see if I can how I can make a person become an influencer. So he had this contest, and in this contest, obviously there was thousands and thousands of people who applied for it, but there's only three people who could win, had the opportunity to help them become these influencers. So out of those three, it was either three or four, but out of those people, it amazed me how he gave them all the same resources, the same tools, everything they need to have to be successful. And just like you said, for those who thought that they might have wanted success, they, either were all in or they weren't all in. And out of the three, one of them ended up being extremely successful. She took it all in. Whatever they gave her, she took it to the limit, to the point where she was overwhelmed with that success. It with it literally overnight. And of course, the big part of the conversation was about the fact that these people who are an influencer, it's not always just because that they're good at what they're doing. It's the algorithm thing. And I think a lot of people kind of don't understand that, you may not really be seeing real likes. It's just all about the fact that it's algorithms. They call them bots, for those who don't understand what bots are. Even famous people use them too. It gets those numbers up so that people can, be seen. And then of course, if you are becoming an influencer and that's what you want to do, that's a big part of how people will reach out to you, especially if they want to give you something for free. And of course, the only thing you got to do is, if it's glasses, you got to wear those glasses and talk about those glasses. If it's something else, they'll do that too. It amazed me, both by watching this program, that those people who got the opportunity to be chosen to become those influencers, like I said, one became successful. Another one, he thought he wanted this and he just freaked out, couldn't handle it at all. And then the other person was like, hey, this is too fake for me, because nobody's going to see me in real life doing these things that you are allowing me to do. And the only reason why they could do what they were able to do is because they had that help. They had somebody showing them everything they needed to do. They had that support system, and all they literally did have to do is show up. But I think the thing that really stood out the most for me was how many companies were so willing to spend their last dollar to get that one shot. And a quick example was how there was one lady, I can't remember the name of the company right now, but they literally spent $185,000 to have these two twins take one shot, one picture, just to be as an influencer. And I can't even remember what the product was, but it was $185,000 they spent for one picture. These kids didn't know what they were just taking pictures. But the thought process that there are so many people out there who are willing to live that life. And like you're saying, they don't know what the longevity is going to be. We don't know if you're going to last a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. And so when you get to a certain point in life, it's like, what are you going to continue to do? Are you going to continue to be that influencer? And it's a lot of work just to show the process of how all that happened, that once they started, they couldn't stop. If you're going to stop, like I said, see, this black and white, either you're going to do it or you're not going to do it. And if you're going to continue to be that influencer, they literally had to be up every single day doing pictures every day in different areas. They were renting places, which I thought was interesting to find out too, is that, you see some people that you think they live in these fabulous lives. It's not their life. It's literally all fake. So when I think about doing the videos I'm doing, oh yeah, we all want to be seen to some extent, but I want it to be real. And so when I think about that, it's like, okay, well, that's great. Well, I can show you this is what my life is, but it's not really about what my life is. It's about what I'm truly trying to share with you. And I think that's the difference when it comes to understanding what are you trying to influence and who are you trying to influence?
Yes. I'm going to say it's yes, and yes. Yep. I mean, but that makes so much sense, though. I mean, it's just yeah. I have nothing to add there.
Oh wow! Well, it's like I said, I just love having these opportunities to have these kinds of conversations because they're needed. And I just think too, it also gives people opportunity just to realize you can be you. It doesn't matter how you do it, what you do it. And for you, it's just all about deciding when you want to show up when you're ready. I mean, it's really what it boils down to. Right. And so it really sometimes isn't always about the actual fear of being in videos. It's all the other things that come with that, because all of our lives are all very different. And, so when you make that decision, like you said, you're either going to be all in or you're not.
Yes. Agreed. So.
Well, all right, darling. But we ain't gonna keep this going too much longer. But I just thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to hang out with me. Cheers to you always.
Cheers.
Always. And of course, we'll be talking on a regular basis as usual. But for everybody else, I hope that you all have enjoyed this episode of 360 and Me with Mimosas and Conversations about Video Fear. And we'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye.